Hey, welcome to Wolf's Watch. I'm Wolf, and today I want to talk to you about a topic that I hadn't planned. I was thinking about something else, and then I had a conversation with a colleague about someone that didn't have time to improve efficiency in a task that they were doing, repetitive task. This is a common problem. So I want to talk with you about that today, especially after reading more headlines today about inflation, economic numbers are off, unemployment in some states is way higher than in others. And here's as an entrepreneur, you need to focus on efficiency today as a hedge against inflation tomorrow. You need to focus on efficiency today as a hedge against capacity needed tomorrow. You need to focus on efficiency today as a way of developing your team for tomorrow's challenges. Here's what I mean by that. Let's say you have somebody that's doing a repetitive task that they're filling out data, they're doing some analysis, and it's clear that this is something that is done over and over again, and that that having a standardized way of doing it, a template, would help them be able to do it more quickly. But because their focus, they're looking at a standpoint of, all right, my goal is to do it as fast as possible today. They're not thinking about tomorrow. So it takes them, let's say, 30 minutes just to make it easy. Could be 10 minutes, could be, whatever number you want to use. Think about it later. For right now, let's say that takes 30 minutes. That's a half hour for one person. Now, let's say you got 5 people doing that once a month. Let's make it 6 people so the numbers are easier for me to work with. I don't have a calculator going right now, so it's always dangerous for me as a recovering engineer to not be using my calculator or a spreadsheet. So let's say you got 6 people, it takes 30 minutes. That's 3 hours a month times, call it 10 months. Say 2 months out of the year because of holidays, vacation, whatever, it's not getting done. So let's say 10 months out of the year. So that's 30 hours out of the year. So it's almost a full week of productivity. Can you afford that? The equivalent of one person's paycheck? Well, it's 30 hours out of a standard week. So can you afford that? If you're a manager at someone else's company and you think that's affordable, well, got a low battery here, so we're going to pick it up. You think that's affordable? Let's use the Luftig paycheck test, which states Dr. Jeffrey Luftig, who last time I talked with him was the Edwards Deming, W. Edwards Deming Chair at University of Colorado, Denver. Luftig paycheck test. Let's take the cost of that out of your paycheck. Is that still worth it? See, the thing is, sometimes it takes a little bit of extra time. Say it took an hour once for one person, took 30 minutes plus another 30 minutes to create the template and get it working. Now, all 6 people are doing the same thing in 5 minutes instead of 30 minutes. Plus, you've eliminated errors that happen afterwards. So a lot of times, the purpose for increasing efficiency, for standardization in a process from an operations standpoint is not just about the efficiency of the task itself. There is the unseen cost of, if you have to redo something manually, you're going to have a higher error rate, particularly if it's a software related process, right? The best practice rule since, 1980s, as I've heard it. Remember earlier in my career, we were talking about it in the 80s. You put data in one time. That expands to a lot of things. You build the product one time. You don't tear it apart and rebuild it 20 times because you got to fix mistakes. You put data in one time, because every time you do data entry, every time that data is re-entered, there's an opportunity for a mistake. Downstream, after that data is put in, the cost of catching that and fixing it rises exponentially. How much does it cost? If that's part of a monthly report, how much does it cost to 3 weeks later, someone catching the monthly report, having to stop, redo it, and cancel a presentation, not make an update to an investor, or not make a presentation to senior management, not making a presentation to the board of directors, not making a presentation to a customer? See how that becomes really expensive at that point? Plus, you've got to pay more people to check for those kind of errors. in between. So the cost really rises by a factor of 10, maybe even 100 to fix it downstream versus upstream. So it's part of the reason you need to standardize today. It's the real cost. And part of the problem from a management standpoint for you as an entrepreneur, the problem and the error that you're making is in what are you measuring? What do you have people focused on? If the team's focused on doing my task right now today and not looking at anything else, you need to retune how you are training them and what you're measuring them on. You get what you measure. The talk I wanted to have with you today was about because we're still living in a very dynamic environment, and this ties into the inflation and inflation numbers and concerns, the economic numbers that have been disappointing that were published at the end of May. It this ties in that when you implement changes, 70% of change initiatives in business fail. That's a number that's published by Ken Blanchard and Company. You can look it up through their website. They do a lot of research on that kind of thing. There's a lot of reasons. There's a lot to unpack in that. This is part of it. What are you focused on? That's a conversation that we'll have on the next Wolf's Watch. So you want to watch tomorrow to hear that part. Gonna let you go. Just wanted to make this a quick thing about look, what are you focused on? What do you have your people focused on? And what's their perspective on doing their job better? Parting thought for you. Early in my career, a valuable lesson that I learned at Hughes Aircraft is they had a performance improvement program. You could test ideas and submit them. Now, the more tested, the better. The more likely they will be accepted. But you could submit ideas into management, and they had a committee that would review them. And if it was something that made sense and it was to the benefit of the company and furthering the company's mission, it would get implemented. You would get recognized for it. What that did for the leadership team was also help identify who's thinking about making stuff better, who's got good ideas, who's effective at it. So to identify leaders, to identify high performers, and be able to coach and mentor them along that track. Find out, as Jack Welch famously said, how much runway do they have, and help guide them on that to see, maybe this is someone that you want to bring along. Do you have a program like that in place? How do you encourage your team to continually look for better ways to do stuff in a way that doesn't interfere with getting today's task done and gives you solid ideas that can be implemented? And third, always looking for those 3 points of leverage, right? And third, gives you a way to identify who are your top people in terms of thinking, because it may surprise you. In fact, let me be bold on this. It will surprise you. You will find people that you would have otherwise overlooked because they aren't the gregarious leaders that you would be putting into administrative leadership positions, but they are technical leaders. They are thought leaders. They are people who are doing their job above and beyond, and you want to nurture and encourage that as well and find a way to reward it, because you get what you measure, right? Which includes you get what you reward in terms of behavior within your company. So that's an operations thought for you today. Inflation's here, and Bank of America rang the bell on warning of hyperinflation. Think Venezuela, right? And other countries where they print banknotes, currency with lots of zeros on it that's pretty worthless. That's, maybe that's going a little too far on their part. Don't know. But when an institution like Bank of America is saying, hey, they're not saying there's a risk, to say we're looking at hyperinflation on the horizon, that's something to really be considered about. Efficiency and continual improvement are going to be huge in finding your way through that, because without those, you're going to find it exceedingly difficult to implement the market opportunities that you'll need to find and that you need to be focused on as an entrepreneur, as the leader of your company, in order to survive economic turbulence, market turbulence, the continuing turbulence that we're riding going through 2021 that started in 2020. So in the comments, what are you doing? What are your thoughts on that? Is this meaningless? Is this good information? Is this something that you think, I don't know what I'm talking about? You got a counter position? Great. Don't spread hate. Spread your thinking. What is your thinking on it? You disagree with me? I want to hear it. You agree with me? Great. Tell me, have you got an example? Share that. hit the like button and join us for tomorrow's Wolf's Watch, where we'll be talking about how to not be part of that 70%. Well, tomorrow we're not going to talk about what to do to not be part of the 70%, but we're going to talk about a couple of the key issues in why the 70% isn't what it appears to be, and sets you up for how to not be part of that 70% failure rate. Thanks for joining us for Wolf's Watch. I'm Wolf, and I will see you on the trail.